So we're back with the lightning talks now. We have 4 lightning talks, I think, at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if anyone in the meantime would see that, oh, it doesn't seem that hard, but Dominic is starting, so don't look at him because it might sound hard. But if you have anything that you would like to speak about, to introduce to the rest, meetup, library, what you've been working on, if you have any problem that is interesting, that is the time for you. And really, it's just like an open stage, so anyone can go in here with a laptop, without. It's time for you. And we are starting with Dominic with 2 lightning talks, I think. Yeah, 2 lightning talks. So it's like a good average, 3 talks per meetup. So the scene is yours.
Yeah, so I will start with a question. What are you using in Python to check your dependencies, whether they have some security vulnerabilities or not? Or whether
Nothing! YOLO!
Dependable.
At least one good answer.
Dependable.
I mean, yeah, there's dependable, but it's tied to GitHub. And you either need to use GitHub Enterprise or your project needs to be open source. So I have a semi-solution for you, which is still work in progress. There is a thing called Pip Audit, which is a tool we develop at Trailbits. I have no involvement in it, but we develop it, and I think Google is paying for it, and it will be probably merged somehow to PyPI, or I think so at least. So you can basically install Pip Audit like this, for example, and then you can use it in your environment. You can probably even pass some, either just Pip Audit, or you can pass in requirements and stuff like that. So maybe we can see how it works here. I have some virtual env where I have some installed libraries, right? And let's try it after it's installed. It's scanning your packages, looking for like some known vulnerabilities, and it seems like my environment has some here, obviously. It may not work in all cases yet because it's still a work in progress, but it should be ready soon, I think. So yeah, you can just use it if you want, I guess.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is Arthur's library listed there?
Is who?
Arthur's library, this that you have had in your talk with the path.
No, I mean, because nobody made a CDE for it, or whatever database it uses for knowing whether something is bugged or not.
Coming to the real question, what database of bugs does it use?
That's a good question, and I don't really have an answer for you right away. But it's something I encourage you to research, because you obviously can look into its code. Oh, it uses PyPA advisory database. So you can report Arthur's library. Yeah, so that was the first lightning talk. The second lightning talk.
Second question.
Yeah.
Does it work with recursive requirements?
It probably should.
I mean,
the
requirements you can
well,
/r. And
I have no idea about the requirements about the requirements file, but if you install the requirements, then you can use it in the environment, and then it should work fine.
Does it actually scan code or just search database for known?
It only looks for known stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're using some, not popular library.
Yeah. So if someone makes a backdoor and in some library, then you'll find it right away, at least, unless someone reports it, right? So it's like dependable basically, but you can use it offline as well. Yeah. The next thing I want to show you is something inspired by a question from Gandhi. So he asked me like 5 minutes ago if there is some Python question you can ask some really good Python developer about that he wouldn't be able to answer to. So my question is, because if we make a function in Python like this, it always returns known, right? If I do x, blah, 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 maybe assign it to A. A is a known type. I mean, it's known. It's not really shown here, but it's known. So the question is, if a function has a return statement in all its branches, does it actually return known? So let's maybe look at the function bar, which I can't really bring here. Oh, I can. Okay, so does this function return known?
Yes. It's mine.
How can we check that? We can disassemble it, right? So we can import this and call this dot this on bar, and we can see the opcodes, the bytecode that Python uses. So we can see here there are only two return here's. The first is the second is load const 2 and return this 2. The first is load const 1 and return this 1. So there's no return known. But if you do this foo situation, does this return known?
Yes.
Kind of. That's a good answer, because if we disassemble it, we can see there are three returns here. First will return 1, the second will return 2, but there is also opcodes emitted for returning known.
In normal circumstances, unreachable.
Yeah, exactly. In normal circumstances, it's unreachable. In which situations we can reach that? Any ideas?
Bit flip.
Maybe, yeah, bit flip is actually a good answer. Like, if there will be some bit flip, for example, in this jump, like maybe this value, then maybe we would be able to reach this.
I think if you use the
Maybe.
fuck it module,
then maybe you can make it.
because and if you do a return something that generates an exception, the fuck it module just ignores the exception and goes further. So maybe this one will then reach the.
Maybe fix would be some object that wouldn't return true if they're false.
No.
No, you cannot really reach that normally. You would basically need some exploit here. I mean, some incorrect situations in terms of how things are executed.
Like if you produce any syntax errors, so it might return null.
Sorry?
Some syntax error issues or anything.
An exception will not produce a null here. How would it work?
No, in this case it is instead of x, if you make some code, the C codes or some other code if you send inside, so it may.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Can you repeat that?
Okay, instead of x, the x is a variable. So if you
And just to be sure, this if x will most likely call the bool function on it, or the bool dunder bool method on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my point is it is trying to execute the x. If the x is producing an error, it always comes. It can't execute if condition. It throws an exception.
Yeah, but this exception will be thrown from this function, and if it's not really caught anywhere, then you've got an exception.
If you
So
have
this function will not really return anything.
Yes, but that's
That
exactly.
is none.
raised exception.
Yes and no,
doesn't
because
mean
if you do this,
functions.
try x equals full of something, and then blah blah blah, then this x will be not really created at all. If the bool of x, of this argument passed here, some argument, right? If the bool on the arg would produce an exception, then this if would never, this x will never be initialized. Yeah.
This is like infinity float or something like this.
No, not really. You will get to the else. So just to finish this, do you want?
It's about return none as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another question, about adding this return none. If you have this typical function that get random number return 4, would there be a return none as well?
No, because you don't have an if condition. So
there
they can
must be a if condition at least.
there must be no return statement in the normal flow. So if we that's a good case. So if we have this, then else and return 2, and then return 3, which will never happen as we said, this return 3 will be here. Yeah. So that's just how it works. And obviously some implementations like PyPy would probably optimize it. CPython does not. Maybe it will in the future. Maybe you can improve it because that's redundant. It can be optimized. It would be a micro optimization here, but if you execute this function like million times,
What is optimized? Just size.
of course, but
Yeah.
size will may in the end how to call it. It may impact the performance as well because
Yeah, but we use Python, so we don't care about performance.
yeah, but still it would be better if that wouldn't be there. Yeah, so that's all. Thank you.
And that's why it's professional.
That's why nobody cares about it right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, someone at some point will optimize it for sure, but it's not there yet.
In 2077.
Yeah.
MacBooks should be fine with this. I
I can
guess
give it to you if you want.
No,
I guess a USB-C.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nic. Już.
Okay, so myself, Kiran. So I was like recently moved to this country, so language issues. So please, I'll be talking only in English, and the questions will be same. Okay, so most of you know about PyEnv. It's like, or if people are using it, or like, it's like, it's a question. Sorry. So do you know PyEnv? Yes. Okay. So the PyEnv is used for multiple Pythons to be installed and maintained. Like if you wanted 3.5 and 3.7 at the same time in your system and switching into multiple projects. So the PyEnv is one of the best solutions where it can manage two different versions of the same 3.x or any multiple versions. So the PyEnv was there from 2012, if I remember correctly. For the Mac and Windows, which was inspired by RubyEnv. But one of the drawback what these people had is like they do not had the Windows support. So that's where it's like on the year of 2018 when I was switching from a Mac to Windows due to company where I was working. So then I thought there is something. It's like I wanted to use PyEnv, but it was not supported. So that's where when I look into the couple of errors of like what exactly do you have any alternative? So then at that time I didn't find a right solution. So then I started, okay, so now while coming to the Mac and Linux, so they have bash or like the scripts. So that's where these people write in shell scripts and the PyEnv, so everything is managed by using the symbolic links. Now while coming to the Windows, you need to make it into their nativity. So that's where I was a little bit of doing the research, and then I found out we can write a Visual Basic script to make the same as like the PyEnv with the Linux to the Windows, and you can manage the installation of multiple Pythons and manage the same virtual environment system. So that's where the project started, and yes, so currently we are supporting only the Python 3, like 2.x and 3.x. Now we are planning to expand this to the Python and other anacondas and these stuff, but we are still yet to explore on that particular inside. One drawback, this library was not growing so fast because of the base was written in Visual Basic. It was not into Python stuff. So one it's like call what I wanted is like if more audience, I mean, like if when they started using it, they're going to generate bugs. At the same time, the people who are like wants to contribute to the open source world, so they are ready to help. So currently there are few people who are helping it, but I wanted more users and the supportability to this particular library who are using Windows and wants to wants to have multiple versions of Python in their system and started exploring of new features of Python or something like that. So currently, if I these are the number of stars what I have. It's like almost like 1.2k, and the folks are like 152 people. And if I see as per the it's like the GitHub has a feature called as requirements, and based on that, it grabs the number of people who uses this library, or like somewhere 65, and you get I mean it's like so if the people used PyEnv, the PyEnv, most of them they have these kind of commands. So we are almost like 60 or 70% we reach to the most of them, or like we are already supporting these all the commands. But only the drawback what we had is like when Microsoft updates from Windows 10 to Windows 11. So what happens is like there are a couple of DLL errors, some files might be missing. So those kind of minor issues which we are seeing it, because in the Windows 11, the upgrades. But apart from that, I mean, the complete system is ready, and most of people are using it. It is going well. So just sort of giving like hints about the library. Yeah, and it has all the installation steps, and it has like you can install from a source and Git, and by using the pip and the chocolate. So these are the stuff what we have, and yeah, mainly them. And there are a couple of like settings which you need to add in the if it's a Windows system. So like the system variables. Yeah. That's mainly about the topic. Any questions or like anything about this library? I can help. Or anyone wants to contribute? Yeah, please.
I have a question because I've seen it already, and from what I understood, what you are using to install the Python versions, these are the installers that are already present on python.org.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Do you have any plans to add a way to actually compile Python by yourself as it is done on Linux? Because, for example,
yes. By coming to Linux, it's like when they release a new Python version, so they're going to make a couple of changes and they do the paths, the differentiations. But while coming to the Windows, so most of the times we used to get exes or a zip file. So it's like to make early availability, means like if Python releases a new version today, I want it in the same day. I do not want it to make a gap of difference of delays. So that's the reason today I directly went with the zip files or exe files directly, and based on the users and needability, so we can plan that. But for now, it is not in the pipeline.
Okay. Well, I'm just for context. That's because,
yes.
For example, I was using Python 3.7.
Yeah.
And the problem is that it's now in the I'm not sure what's the name, extended support, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I can do on Windows, I can only get Python 3.7.9,
mm-hmm.
the installer, and if I want to go any higher, I have to compile it by myself. There are no installers for 3.7 for 10, and if I would have something that would allow me to stay on 3.7 for whatever reason I have, whatever business reason that I have, and it would allow me to install it and compile it easily, it would be great for me. That's why I was asking.
Yes, I understand. I was like, for me, it is like, what exactly we did here is like, not just Python.org. It's like if you have any, if I remember correctly, we were doing a scrapping of 500 and we are listing all the exes and the zip files which are available. That is one. I'm not sure. It's like we had a local file and then installation. Maybe we had, if you have an exe file or a zip file which is already made, means like already built Python, I think it has installation capability, but needs to explore again. So what exactly happens here is like when it finds means like the FTP of the remote location or a local location of a exe or a zip file. So it first downloads and then it starts installing it. So if I give the local path of any exe or it means like the script which you already built, so it is going to install it. But one thing is like we are not compiling it because that needs, again, you need other library dependencies. So which if I make that as a dependency, so people will see, no, I need one more library to use this. So that kind of scary and people might leave. So
yes, I understand, but on the other way, on the other side, what Python on Linux does is exactly that. If you don't have, like, for example, SQLite -dev installed, you won't have SQLite in your Python installation, and well, you just have to suck it up.
yeah.
Okay. Also, thank you.
So it's nice to see you all again in 3D in real life. But I wanted to propose another event, let's call it like that, that will take place tomorrow. So first question, do you like writing code? If you do, raise your hand, please. Yay, great. Would you like to learn how to get up early in the morning? If so, raise your hand. One person. Okay, great. So if you like riddles and if you like writing code, and if you would like to learn how to get up early in the morning, there is a great opportunity for you that's actually starting next week. But what I'm suggesting is warm up towards it, not to like shock your organism when you will be waking up at 6 a.m. What I'm talking about is a thing called the Advent of Code. Advent of Code is actually a series of riddles that you can solve in any programming language. And also you can compete with other people. not so great thing about it is that it starts every day, and the new riddle comes in 6 a.m. of our time. So if you would like to compete with everyone in the world, you need to get up at 6 a.m.
Or you can move to Japan, for example.
You can do that. You can move to New York to start the riddles at like
At midnight.
midnight.
Or you can
Yeah,
actually
perfect.
go to delete the record in production if
Anyway, some of you I know that haven't heard about AOC. Let me think how I could get a plus sign to enhance this without a mouse. It was Control plus? Yes. Okay, so here is an exemplary. That's not the best solution. Yeah, it's a long time since I use a USB-C to connect a display. Here's an exemplary riddle. So there is some backstory usually about this, but it really doesn't matter. What's important is the riddle itself. For example, you have in this riddle, you have some input, and it's a list of integers, line by line, and through those integers you need to find those that sum up to 2020, and then you need to take those numbers and create a product of them, and then this is your output from your program that you will put in a box that will appear here. This is a solved riddle, so there is no box. And it's like that. It's not very difficult, right? You need to find two things that sum up to 2020 and then multiply them. Very easy. The hard part is getting at 6 a.m. and actually being able to read this and understand what's happening. That's the toughest part, understanding what's happening in the riddle. So about the event. So tomorrow morning at 6:30, we will have a warm-up session. So I will put up one of the riddles on our Discord, on PyData Discord channel. And you can join in and try to solve it. And also, I think I will show some useful things, some useful functions in Python that usually come handy in Advent of Code. And the next event will be at 6 a.m. And it will happen on Monday, so that's like top-notch timing to do any event. But if you would like to join us, that would be great. And then I think it's on Wednesday when the actual Advent of Code starts. So if you would like to start writing solutions to Advent of Code on PyData Cracow channel, the Discord server, there will be a channel where we will be discussing solutions. Even if you are not getting up at 6 a.m. But doing it daily, or you would like to catch up, that's a great place to do so. So the easiest way to find all of this is probably through Meetup. You can find it in Cracow, marked in Cracow, and you should look for PyData. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
For waking up at 6 a.m., I suggest the admin alarm clock.
What is that?
Admin alarm clock is basically setting up rmrf/ in your cron.
Great. If I fail to wake up, there is no reason to get up.
Going to start with this talk with saying that half of the preparation of that was reminding how to enter the presentation mode in PyCharm. And the second part was making sure that my internet connection is at least a bit stable. So my lightning talk is a little bit philosophical because we are in 2021, reaching 2022, and we still do recruitment tasks. And the most common, the most known is, for example, a FizzBuzz. So what would you do if you have a candidate that comes to you with his laptop and does the FizzBuzz and then just stops? Would you say that, okay, that's a good developer that knows what he's doing or not? So my presentation today is about the GitHub Copilot. Okay.
Can I hire his editor instead of him?
We know that we all copy-paste our solutions. So the question, the philosophical question is GitHub Copilot a better copy-paste for developers? So it is the GitHub Copilot. Does anyone here use that on an everyday basis? Okay. Is anyone in? Okay. So not many, okay. So it's a closed beta right now. Like you need to apply to get to the GitHub Copilot. When I applied 2 weeks ago, it took 2 days. Right now it's around 1 week of waiting. So basically GitHub analyzed all of their repositories, and they have a lot of repositories, and prepared an AI that suggests code. So let's say that FizzBuzz is not enough, and you have a really good person to hire, a really good candidate that even writes tests. And a second. Yep. And that might be an internet connection. Is there something? Yep. Yeah, and we have even some tests for our FizzBuzz. Let's add a few more. Really good candidate. What more? What was that? Find numbers that sum up to 2020. Okay, here we go. So what I wanted to show you is that these are very simple problems. Like when you define the name of the functions in a good way, usually you have a very easy answer for your problem. But okay, yeah, let's go with that.
Can you optimize that?
No, Copilot only suggests you one solution. That's not perfect. Like I hope that one day they would improve it, like with the Google Translate, when you can see other
I
suggestions.
think there was a way to get other solutions, maybe in the past. Maybe it's not in the beta.
Maybe it's not in the PyCharm plugin, because now the Copilot is integrated into PyCharm and VS Code, and I think with the VI you can integrate it, of course, as well. There are some integrations. The surprising part is not when you just print write one nice name of the function and it does what you want, but when you code and you want to use some, I don't know, Django related stuff, and it really suggests you the things that you are going to write. So what I suggest is to sign up for the Copilot, because it's not the solution to our problems, but it's like there is somebody sitting next to you and suggests you what you need to write. You need to read that, you need to review that, of course, but it really solves some of the hassle. Yeah.
So it basically Googles it for you.
Not the name for the function, I think.
You had to.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
more place.
the middle, but the name doesn't stick to it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it multiplies. Oh yeah, that's
Why
why.
it returns?
Yeah, that's why it's good to review that.
And it's not even the exact solution, because the exact solution was about all of the numbers that sum up to 2020, so it's not even that.
Maybe I wrote the name of the function incorrect. Like it might be better specified.
Find
So
all.
does your employee allows you to send your code to GitHub servers? Because basically that's what you are doing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. No
Aren't
problem.
you using GitHub?
Yeah, slightly better.
Oh.
No, it does multiply but doesn't return like all.
This is the solution for the previous one. It has off by one error.
Could you add one more thing to the name? Find all numbers that sum up to 2020 in a list.
No.
No.
Oh wait, actually yeah. Isn't it?
No, it returns one pair.
Yeah, it always seems to always return one pair, but let's say that return numbers
Can you create a
is
result
an
array?
empty list, and let's see what now.
Okay. Okay. No.
No, it doesn't make sense.
No. Wait a second.
Right, it may make sense.
Oh,
It may make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Better? Yeah. Now it's
Wait. It will not work with 1010. Right?
Yeah.
If it wouldn't be duplicated in the numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So do you know how this actually
No.
works? Is it just
It's all AI.
AI.
It actually works.
I'm asking about the input of this AI
I
because
can explain how it works in short.
It works properly.
But generally
does it work on the this big model, big language model?
It's like Gandhi said, it's like having someone who is sitting beside you, but that person actually read all of the Stack Overflow and the GitHub, and it doesn't know if it read the solution or the problem.
Okay.
And it remembers all of that, and this is how it can suggest something.
What I'm asking if this is based on GPT?
Yes, it's GPT.
It's GPT, yeah, because it looks like.
Well, not getting into too many details, I think it's something quite new in our toolkit.
GPT is a few years old.
3 years old. Some people are still using Python 2.7, so 3 years old maybe it's not that bad.
If it works.
No, what basically I mean is that something new, something worth to play with, because maybe that will be big in the future, maybe not. For now, I find it really handy. I mostly use that when coding JavaScript. Like, I don't know JavaScript, I don't know React, but I can code in React because it just suggests me the right things. So,
you know, in the end, it's closed API, so you don't really. Not everyone has access to it, and probably in the future it will be paid.
there's a chance.
And there is another open source project that aims to for making exactly the same thing but open source.
Okay.
It's called I think Elutra or something like this, and it's trying to replicate GPT-3 but open source.
Okay, nice. I didn't know about that. Okay, so that's it from me, but we have one more lightning talk. So the fourth talk for today from Connected.
Lightning talk is about one trick to make your programs more secure. Or maybe I should say your environments more secure. So, it's all, by the way, it's all about Linux. It doesn't really cover macOS or Windows, yeah?
I know it, just press the power button.
Yeah, that's great, but you don't do that on servers. So, let's go to here, and we have here something, and let's maybe remove it, just to have a clean environment here. What is A? I don't know. Yeah, and we have a make file here. So with this make file, we will compile two binaries, main.c and main2.c. We will do some stuff like this. So we will make the a.out owned by root user and root group, and we will add the set UID bit for this binary. Question, who knows what is set UID bit? Raise your hand. Okay, not everyone. So how does sudo work on Linux? How can this happen that I can become root if I have a root password or something? So I'm like, if we do this, like ID on Linux shows you what is your like user ID, which is here, and group ID. You may become to many groups here. So I am user DC, which has an UID of 1000, but if I do sudo su, I will become the root user, right? And how does it work? It's because if we would do this, so if we look over the sudo binary with ls, there is this s permission here, and this means set UID, which means if you run this binary, you will become the same user, like effectively, as the owner of this binary. So you are becoming root, because you are launching a binary that has this permission here. And you can add this permission to your own programs with this chmod here. So that was basics. Now, what can we do to prevent this from happening? Anyone? What? Remove set UID bit. Okay, sure, but you may not always know what's your environment or what people can spawn in your environment, or how can they spawn their things there. Because obviously, as a normal user, I can't really add this set UID here. Oh, this is wrong, it should be sudo here, but I will have to launch this makefile as a sudo anyway. So that's the only reason why it would work, actually, because I wouldn't be able to add this set UID bit for the root user as a DC user here. So yeah, let me launch it. And I created two programs in C. But what I want to show you is that each program on Linux, you can render information about those programs from the prog file system. And there is, like, each program has a process ID, which if we look at like this, we can see those process IDs here. You can list your process ID by $$ in bash. But you can also refer to your own program by self here. And you can use this status file, which displays you information about your process. So the process I ran was cat. So we basically got information from the cat process. Its name is cat. It's executed by the user ID 1000. I won't explain why there are like 4 of them here, but there is a reason for that. The group is also 1000 because the DC user has a group of 1000. There's plenty of information about like some memory stuff, about Linux capabilities, which are kind of relevant, but not here. And what I want to talk about is this no new prefs flag here. So this flag is not enabled by default. It's probably for convenience, but it's good to enable it. And we will see now 2 binaries in which we will actually, in one we will not enable it. So the first binary, maybe I will display it better. The first binary, what it does is, it's written in C, but it basically uses the set UID of 0, so it sets your user ID to 0 and group ID to 0. Normally, you can't really execute it if you are not root or someone who has those permissions to execute it. But since I will do this sudo make, I created this main C as a.out. I added its owner and group to root, and I added the set UID bit. So if we do ls on it, we can see this s here and s here as well. This is set group ID, this is set UID. So if I execute it, okay, coming back, I will do this. This means that sudo basically will ask me for password. So I can't really get to root without password right now. But with this a.out, I just became root, because that was the set UID binary. So the question is, can we prevent this from happening? Can we block this
Sure, you can have no suite mount option.
Yeah, you can have a no suite mount option, so you can mount your file system. That's a good answer. So yeah, I may not show a particular mount here, but those
There
mounts.
is UDEF first.
Yeah, for example, this like def-tts means there's no suid option here means that you cannot have suid binaries there. But normally you can have that on normal file systems. I mean, in your root FS usually. So the other question is how to prevent that. As Linux, yeah, security enhancements Linux module. That's a very special thing. You should probably use it on production, but not everyone uses it.
Not compiling programs with Sudo.
Not compile your programs with Sudo. Do not add this set UID bit. But let's assume you don't really do it explicitly, but someone found a way to do it by themselves and like introduce this SUI binary into your system. So if that's the case, apart from SE Linux, which is not really that easy to set up, there is this no new prefs flag, which is not enabled by default, but you can enable it yourself. And in order to do that, there is a syscall called PRCTL, which is like maybe process control, I guess. It has this flag, set no new prefs, where you can set this value here. Those are some other arguments you need to pass. So if we get to the bash with this flag, remember, before we did, sorry, I'm still root, so I will drop back to this previous console where I'm not root. And just to be sure, this no new prefs is not enabled here. So now I will make sudo make, oh, maybe just make again. Can I do that? No, but anyway, this make file still compiled the second binary as no prefs. So this no prefs, it's not suid binary. And it's this main to code which executes this PRCTL, no new prefs, and bin bash. So if I execute it right now, I'm still my user because that was not suid binary, right? And if I do cat proc self status, this no new prefs is now enabled. Which means that if I have a binary like a.out here, okay, it doesn't have this suid binary. No, let me maybe recompile it quickly because I recompiled it without sudo, and so it was dropped here. So I will do sudo make. Back here, we can see this a.out still is a suid binary, right? So if I execute it right now, those two syscalls that were executed, they failed. That's why there's a result of -1 from them. This means I didn't become root because this no new prefs flag was enabled, and so I can't really become root. And what I want to advise you, because I showed this code in C code, right? But this PRCTL can still be called from Python, and you should probably do it in your programs. And if you run Docker or Kubernetes, those options are there. For example, in Docker, you can use the -- security opt and then no new prefs. Okay, I don't really remember what's the exact flag, but something like this. Maybe it's just without the space here and without the value here. I don't remember, honestly. But you can enable it in Docker containers, and that's what you should always do. Because, you know, if you are, I hope you are dropping your user from root in Docker containers to a different user, but if you are doing so, maybe it's good to enable some additional flags that will secure you more from getting more privileges.
How does it correlate with effective ID?
So that's a kernel feature. So whenever you launch a setuid binary, they are checking whether you have this no new prefs flag. If you have it enabled, you will not get this ID change.
So just disable set UI.
But what if you, without this flag, if you change your effective user ID and group ID to some non-user, you will not be able to change it anyway later, yeah?
Sorry, what do you mean to like nobody or what?
I mean that instead of just setting set UID and set GID in programs that are running like demos, you also set effective UID and effective GID, and doesn't it prevent the later code programs from elevating?
I mean, probably no. Because, like, Okay, right now here, sorry, I will go back from this shell just to the standard shell, which doesn't have this flag. Yep. We don't really have this flag here, right? So just for others, we have 4 UIDs and 4 group IDs here because there is like real effective file system and something else UIDs and group IDs. So there are like 4 of them inside of the Linux kernel. And all of them here are the same. So isn't this the situation you were asking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this means that you can still escalate your privileges to root with Sudo binaries, right? Right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions or comments?
So it's like a setting that is preventing you from running Sudo binaries.
From getting more privileges, because that's also related to Linux capabilities.
So if you are in this binary, you can't run Sudo.
Yeah, you can. If you are in a shell with this, you will not be able to run sudo as well, right? So I can also show you this right now. We run no briefs, right? And here in those no briefs, we have this no news briefs flag. So if I try sudo su, we will get, effective UID is not 0 because the sudo binary didn't get its set UID set to 0 as what it expected, right? So it says,
And for some reason there is a comment about NFS.
Yeah, exactly. They asked about this case. You said that you could like mitigate it with, but they didn't really check for no news brief flag, which they could, but they didn't. Yeah. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so one more unexpected lightning talk. Let's keep it under 5 minutes because we need to finalize.
Relating to what Disconnected said and what our new friend was talking about slightly, do you want to release some Python code and you want to make it so that you can use it on your user's machine, but you don't know if they have Python installed with the right version, etc. What you can do. Or like, for example, you don't want the vulnerability about loading the shared objects by Python. What you can do is you can go to this guy who is creating Pyoxidizer. Pyoxidizer is a software which packages Python into bundles and then lets you run your application on any computer, be it Windows or Linux. But this is not really the part that I would like to talk about. It's just that Pyoxidizer uses this repository, which is Python build standalone, made by the same guy. And basically, what he does is that he gets the source code of Python. Modifies the setup.py of Python itself, and then basically crams everything that it can into one Python executable, making it as static as possible. Like, for example, if we go to actions, we can see that the latest build is still ongoing. It's already been 6 hours. So yeah, it takes some time. It takes some time here, but we can check one of the old builds, which I can see it failed, but it doesn't really matter. You have like 69 jobs, nice. Doing, building all the Linuxes, all the Python versions, like for ARM, for 32-bit, x86 for 64 bits, etc. Sadly, not all Python versions are supported, only the last ones, because, well, it's already quite a lot of work here, as you can see, and it really takes like 6 hours to build. But when you're using this Python executable, well, it's as static as it can be, which is it doesn't try to load any shared objects from the system. So you can use it for security measures, so that it doesn't load that read line thing, or basically you are guaranteeing that whatever the user has on their system, on their operating system, will not interfere with your code, because you will know which version of everything will be running, and this is basically something that I'm using for my project for Linux. There are Windows builds which may or may not be useful for that virtual env PyEnv project, but I'm not sure about them because I haven't used them, so I would prefer to not suggest it, at least for now. But yeah, if you want a project, if you want to make sure that your users are using the right Python that will always work the same way as yours on your machine, then you can use Python build standalone, especially if you're embedding Python into other executables, for example. That's all. Thank you.